thought twice about a fish stick. But 500 years ago, this ugly, bug-eyed fish was worth more than gold. Kings went to war over it. Empires were built on it. Millions of enslaved people were fed on it, against their will, so that plantation owners could get richer, and an entire American state still hangs a life-size wooden statue of it above the government, because without this fish, that state might not exist. This isn't a story about gold, or tobacco, or sugar. This is the story of the cod, and how a fish nobody respects quietly built the New World. Before Columbus ever set sail, there's a good chance Spanish fishermen had already found the New World, and told nobody. They were the Basques, from the coast between Spain and France. Long before 1492, Basque sailors had built a reputation as the best whalers and fishermen in Europe, and multiple historians now believe Basque boats may have pursued Grand Banks cod even before Columbus stumbled into the Caribbean. Why would anyone hide a discovery that big? Because cod, at the time, wasn't just food. It was Europe's most valuable protein. The Catholic Church required people to avoid meat on Fridays, on holy days, during Lent. Roughly a third of the calendar year, millions of people needed a substitute. Salted, dried fish was the answer, and whoever controlled the supply controlled a fortune. So if you were a Basque captain who had quietly found the richest fishing grounds on earth, the smartest thing you could do was say nothing. Sail out, fill your hold, sail home, get rich, repeat. In 1497, an Italian explorer sailing for England named John Cabot crossed the Atlantic looking for a route to Asia. He didn't find Asia. He found something stranger. He sailed into waters so thick with fish that his crew claimed they didn't even need nets. According to the reports that came back, the cod could be taken not only with the net, but in baskets let down with a stone, so that it sinks in the water. That single report changed everything. Within a few years, Basque, Portuguese, Spanish, and French fishing crews were crossing the Atlantic every single year, chasing the same waters, an area we now call the Grand Banks, off the coast of Newfoundland. One writer at the time compared the seafloor there to a mountain buried under the ocean, its cod population seeming to equal the grains of sand covering it. This wasn't a handful of boats. This was the first true transatlantic industry, decades before the first English colonists ever set foot in Jamestown or Plymouth. People assumed the New World was discovered by settlers looking for land. The truth is messier. The first Europeans crossing the Atlantic every year, again and again, funding entire fleets, weren't looking for land at all. They were looking for fish. And by the middle of the 1500s, it's estimated that roughly 60% of all the fish eaten in Europe came from these waters. A continent was feeding itself off of fish most of them would never see caught. Okay, so at this point you might be thinking, fine, it's a popular fish. That still doesn't explain why anyone would fight a war over it. Here's the part that changes everything. Cod doesn't spoil the way other fish does. Split it, gut it, cover it in salt, and let it dry, and it can last for years, not days, years. That one detail is the whole reason this story matters. A fish that lasts for years can be shipped across an ocean. It can be stockpiled. It can be sold. It can be used as payment. In other words, a fish had just become something closer to money. And once something becomes money, people start fighting over who gets to print it. By the 1600s, salted cod wasn't just dinner. It was currency. New England colonists paid their debts in dried cod. They paid their taxes in it. Massachusetts fishermen alone brought in an estimated 300,000 cod to market in a single year by 1640, barely 20 years after the Pilgrims had landed. Cod exports were bringing in the cash colonists needed to buy manufactured goods from Europe, because the cod trade was the source of the cash New Englanders needed to buy European products. But here's the part that's rarely told in the cute Massachusetts fish statue version of this story. The lowest grade cod, the broken, poor quality fish that couldn't be sold in Europe, was shipped south to the sugar plantations of the Caribbean. Enslaved Africans forced to labor on those plantations were fed this cod, while the plantations themselves generated the sugar wealth that helped fuel Europe's Industrial Revolution. This trade route became part of a larger triangle: New England fish, Caribbean sugar, European manufactured goods, that helped finance the entire colonial economy on both sides of the Atlantic. Cod money built ships. Cod money built docks. Cod money, in a very real sense, helped bankroll the wealth that let the American colonies eventually stand on their own 2 feet. Which is why, to this day, if you walk into the Massachusetts State House and look above the Speaker of the House, you'll find a 5-foot wooden cod hanging from the ceiling. It's called the sacred cod, and it's been there, in one form or another, since the third and final version of it was hung in the old State House in 1784. Lawmakers debate under a wooden fish because, without that fish, there might not have been a Massachusetts wealthy enough to build a state house at all. You've heard of wars fought over oil, wars fought over land, religion, gold. Cod started wars too. For centuries, whoever controlled the richest fishing grounds controlled enormous wealth, which meant those waters were constantly contested. Spain dominated the cod fishery until its navy was crushed in 1588, and once that happened, England moved in and took over as the dominant power on the Grand Banks, with France as their main rival for control. Losing a naval war didn't just cost Spain ships, it cost them a fishing empire, and this rivalry didn't stay in the 1500s. It echoed for centuries. As late as the 20th century, Britain and Iceland fought a series of tense, real, naval standoffs, ships ramming ships, nets being cut, gunboats deployed, that history still calls the Cod Wars, all because 2 nations refused to give up their claim to the same fish. Stop and actually sit with that for a second. Humanity has gone to sea, armed warships, and risked lives over cod, not oil, not gold, cod. Here's where the story turns dark. For nearly 500 years, people treated the cod supply as if it could never run out. Boat after boat, generation after generation, pulled fish from the same waters, and the waters always seemed to refill themselves. Then, in the 20th century, fishing stopped being about boats and nets. It became industrial, massive trawlers, sonar-guided, capable of scooping up more fish in a single trip than an entire fleet could catch in a season, centuries earlier. By 1992, the unthinkable happened. Canadian officials announced what fishermen had feared for years. The northern cod population had crashed. On July 2nd, in a hotel ballroom packed with furious fishermen, Canada's fisheries minister announced a 2-year moratorium on cod fishing in Newfoundland. In a region of roughly 500,000 people, that single announcement put around 30,000 people out of work overnight, many of them from families that had fished those same waters for 200 years. The moratorium was supposed to last 2 years. The cod never recovered. The government kept extending it, year after year, while entire fishing towns emptied out and the province's population fell by 10% within a decade. A fish that helped build the New World had been fished almost to extinction by the world it built. Think about that for a second. This one, ordinary-looking fish helped fund colonies, pay off debts, feed empires, start wars, and then it nearly vanished because everyone assumed the ocean would just keep giving forever. That's not really a story about fish. That's a story about what happens when we treat something priceless as if it's unlimited. So the next time you walk past the frozen fish aisle, or bite into a fish stick without thinking twice, remember what you're actually holding, not just dinner. A fossil of an economy that built colonies, funded wars, and enslaved people to keep the machine running. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Cod isn't the only ingredient with a story like this. Sugar has one. Salt has one. Pepper, tea, bananas, even bread. Every single thing sitting in your kitchen right now has a hidden history of greed, empire, and survival buried underneath it. And almost none of it ever makes it into a textbook. That's exactly why Foodlore exists. We dig up the stuff that's been buried under grocery store shelves and school textbooks. The wars, the empires, the fortunes, and the forgotten people. All hiding behind the ordinary things we eat without a second thought. So if this changed the way you'll look at a fish stick forever, hit subscribe. We've got dozens more of these hiding in plain sight, and we're not stopping until we've dug up all of them. Drop a comment and tell us which food you want us to investigate next. Sugar? Salt? Chocolate? We're already taking notes. And if this one surprised you, don't keep it to yourself. Send it to the one friend who's never once questioned where their food actually comes from.